This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, a big breaking development here in this Russia investigation. The Wall Street Journal at the moment is reporting that special counsel Bob Mueller has impaneled a grand jury here with regard to Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election. So I've got a lot of lawyers I want to bring in to walk us through exactly what this means here in this investigation. I have Danny Savalos, Jeff Toobin is on the phone, Paul Callan is here with me in New York, and Chris Cillizza is in Washington. But Jeff Toobin, let me just begin with you on the phone. How significant is this? What does this mean?
Well, it's certainly significant, but I don't think we should overstate it. What it means is that Mueller can now take sworn testimony in front of the grand jury, can start subpoenaing people, asking people to testify. And, of course, if he gets enough evidence, he can now ask the grand jury for an indictment of people. Now, just because a grand jury is impaneled doesn't mean that there will be indictment, but you can't have indictments without a grand jury. So it is certainly a significant step. It shows that he means business. It shows that he is doing a serious criminal investigation, which he thinks should proceed, but it does not mean that criminal charges are imminent, nor does it mean criminal charges will ever even happen.
Paul Callan, does this mean they're just deeper in the investigation, a new phase in the investigation? What does it tell you?
Oh, it means they're deeper in the investigation. You don't impanel a grand jury unless there's a suspicion that an investigation, a deeper investigation, is going to reveal something. And remember, prosecutors have enormous power over the grand juries they impanel. A famous New York judge once said that, you could get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. And the reason he said that is that the prosecutor is alone in the room with the grand jurors as the investigation continues, sometimes every day for a month. Alone with the grand jurors.
You're saying there's no cross-examination, it's just the prosecutor, and so they get what they want.
Sure. Now, the grand jurors can ask questions of witnesses if they have questions that are different than the prosecutors, but it develops sort of a simpatico, a friendship between the grand jurors and the prosecutor, and they'll pretty much do what the prosecutor wants them to do, as a general rule.
Walk us through exactly how this works. When we talk about grand juries, they're just regular folks, right? In a grand jury like this, a dozen, 2 dozen people?
Exactly, yes. In the federal rules, that's 16 to 23 persons, and you only need 12 to return what's called a true bill. In other words, an indictment. Yes, we found enough probable cause. And, we talk about grand juries in terms of accusatory or investigatory functions, but at their core, grand juries are about finding probable cause that a crime has been committed. That's it. The only reason we call them grand is because they're large, as opposed to what is a petit jury, the small jury that you see at trial. That's the only difference. These are the same citizens that are drawn from the community, but as Paul said, and Paul has sat in as a prosecutor on many a grand jury, you have a one-sided relationship with the grand jurors as a prosecutor. There are no defense attorneys. There's no cross-examination. So it's no surprise that indictments are common and relatively easy to get.
In terms of, so it will be easy to get the probable cause to then continue on to the next phase. Is that what you're telling me?
It only means probable cause is more likely than not that a crime has been committed and the people accused or believed to have done it are the doers. And when you have only one side of the story and all the evidence that a prosecutor submits to the jury, to a grand jury, they usually end up indicting. Would they indict a ham sandwich? I'm not so sure, but you get the idea.
The probable cause finding means that they're going to bring an indictment and there'll be a jury trial to follow. I think, when I think of grand juries being impaneled and why it's such an important thing, the prosecutor now has a tool which he can use to get an indictment, but he has a very big investigative tool as well, because the grand jury can issue subpoenas. The grand jury can compel you to come before it to testify. If an FBI agent shows up at your house and says, "I'd like to take your statement," you can say, "I'm not talking to you, get out of here." But you get a grand jury subpoena, you've got to appear in front of the grand jury. Now, you can assert the Fifth Amendment once you do, unless you're given immunity, but that tool is in place, and prosecutors will use it to gather large amounts of evidence that they can't normally get.
But we will, Jeff Toobin, back to you on the phone. We will never know. The public will never know. It's not a big deal that we know that this grand jury has been impaneled. It's significant, and it's significant in this investigation that the public knows, but we will never actually know what happens among the grand jurors, correct? We just will know if probable cause happens and the process continues. Do we lose Toobin? Let's go to you, Paul.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I lost you there for a second, Brooke.
No, my question was just, we will never know, whatever happens in this with the prosecutor and these grand jurors, we will never know what comes of it as far as substance. We will just know if probable cause is reached and therefore continues on in the process, correct?
Well, most likely that's what we'll know. Although if there's a trial and the same witnesses are called in the grand jury, called in the trial, their testimony then is turned over to the defense as a prior statement. But for the most part, grand jury proceedings remain secret, and all that we know is if and when they issue an indictment. So they are secret proceedings. They usually stay secret forever, but certainly we do know if they issue an indictment, and of course that's the most important thing they do or don't do.
Okay, so what about the politics of all of this? Crystal-Liza, let me come to you there in Washington. You know, we know that despite all of the president's intel chiefs and what they've said about Russian interference, the president has yet to say definitively, yes, this happened. He doesn't like the fact that he or his aides are being investigated. How do we anticipate how this is responded to where you are?
Well, what's interesting, Brooke, last week we had, between 6 and 7 a.m. we would get 5, 6, 7 Donald Trump tweets about a variety of subjects, sort of his thoughts throughout the day. We haven't had as much of that this week. Now, I really hesitate to ascribe pattern to this. Maybe he's just not doing it. But if there was going to be a moment where Donald Trump would break his 3-day-long Twitter hiatus, or, Twitter being a little bit better, politically speaking, on Twitter, this would probably be it. You're right about the Russia investigation. And also, so he's been very public about his dislike for the Mueller investigation.
Right.
Very mad at Jeff Sessions for having recused himself, repeatedly saying he was disappointed, saying that the investigation is nothing but a partisan witch hunt and a total hoax. That's the kind of thing you might expect to see here from Trump, because as Jeff Toobin and everybody else points out, this is not for sure that Donald Trump or the folks around him did anything criminal, but it is a step that suggests Mueller is moving forward, right? We just heard word yesterday Mueller has hired at least 16 lawyers for this special counsel probe. We now have this news that the investigation is at least taking a preliminary next step. Those are the kind of things that in the past have set him off, and he usually uses Twitter as his preferred medium. I'll add, he's got a big thing tonight in West Virginia, sort of campaign-style rally before he heads on vacation. So I'd look to that to see how much message discipline he's going to be able to exert.
Good way to put it, Crystal-Liza. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thank you. We have more on the breaking news here that's all on the Wall Street Journal here, that the special counsel, Bob Mueller, has impaneled this grand jury in this Russia investigation. Back in a moment.